But first, we have breaking news as the U.S. Supreme Court blocks Wisconsin from implementing the voter ID law. The decision stopping the law that makes voters present their photo IDs at the polls came down just after 8 tonight.
As this news develops tonight, News 3's Danica Lewis breaks down what we need to know ahead of the November 4th election. Danica?
Well, Eric, Michelle, barring any other changes, this ruling means you do not need an ID to vote next month. But this has been quite the back and forth. Here we go. A federal judge struck down the law last spring. About a month ago, a court of appeals ruling allowed the law to move forward. And late last week, that court ultimately found the voter ID law constitutional. The next day, the voter ID opponents filed an emergency request to the nation's highest court to block the law. And as of tonight, the U.S. Supreme Court has done just that. Important to note, though, the majority decision did not give an exact reason for going against the appellate court's ruling. The dissenting opinion does say there is basis, quote, due to proximity of the upcoming general election. Charles Franklin with the Marquette Law School was surprised by tonight's ruling.
There's no way to undo the confusion that has existed as we've gone back and forth. But as long as this ruling stays in effect through November, at least it clarifies the situation for these last 4 weeks of the campaign.
Franklin says in the latest Marquette Law School poll, more than a quarter of Wisconsin's voters didn't think they needed an ID to vote or didn't know the rules. He adds the court could revisit this issue after Election Day. We heard from the ACLU of Wisconsin late tonight, one of the vocal opponents of this voter ID law. Its legal director releasing a statement saying, quote, today's order puts the brakes on the last-minute disruption and voter chaos created by this law going into effect so close to the election. It will help safeguard the vote for thousands of Wisconsinites as this case makes its way through the courts. And Attorney General Van Hollen tonight saying, quote, I believe the voter ID law is constitutional and nothing in the court's order suggests otherwise. He goes on to say, quote, we will be exploring alternatives to address the court's concern and have voter ID on Election Day. Now, again, the Supreme Court is not saying the law is unconstitutional, and this decision does not say whether the court plans to rule on the law's constitutionality. The Government Accountability Board tells us it has no comment tonight. That agency announced a campaign was supposed to launch this weekend to educate voters about bringing an ID to the polls. Bottom line, as long as nothing else changes, guys, before November 4th, you do not need an ID to vote on Election Day.
A lot of opinions, a late-breaking story tonight.
And a lot of information.
And this is one we will be following up on tomorrow as well.
Yep.
Danica, thank you very much.
Sure.